boy. Oh, good boy. Leo, come here. Leo.
Down US 395 to the Peppermill for vlog number 50. Pretty cool number. Should I do it like Super Bowl 50, where they had the first 49 in Roman numerals, but for Super Bowl 50 they just refused to do Super Bowl L. So they just put a 50 on there. I guess I didn't do the first 49 in Romans anyway. So a couple of things before we do anything else that I have to mention that I ended up actually screwing up. The first, about 1,000 of you noticed, or actually probably more than that. And this was bound to happen because sometimes when I get into the rhythm of editing these vlogs, sometimes I'm just like zoned out and I'm so focused in on just what I say in the narrative track that I can just miss something. And obviously that happened in vlog 48, where I put the wrong graphic on the screen. I did not have a straight in that hand when I had ace king of clubs, and I folded the river. I just had ace high, and I thought it was a questionable fold with ace high. But I ended up putting the wrong graphic on there, so it looked like I had the wheel. And about 1,000 of you commented saying, what a terrible fold. Yes, that would have been a bad fold. Would have been was a bad enough fold as it is with ace high. The more I thought about the hand, the more it just didn't make any sense. So that was one unfortunate thing. And then the other thing that I messed up was when I reviewed this car, my Tesla Model 3, I was wrong about the pricing of the autopilot / self-driving. I forget exactly what I said, but the way it actually is it costs an extra $3,000 to add on autopilot. I thought they had said $4,000 after you take delivery of the car. It turns out for me it was still $3,000. And then an additional $6,000 on top of that if you want full self-driving. So $9,000 total if you want full self-driving plus autopilot. So I ended up just buying the autopilot here recently, which I'm on right now. So just to clear that up from a couple of vlogs back too. Anyway, let's get in there. Pretty weird session last night where I ended up in one of three 3-5 games at Peppermill. Pretty rare to have 3, but when they do have 3, they make it so the third game is a feeder game to the first 2, and it just feeds both of them. So it's not a must move to a must move. It is just 2 main games, and if you're in the good main game, that really works out for you. Unfortunately, I was in the terrible main game, and then it got worse when one of the best players in town by the name of Dan Healy was moved to my game, and he picked up pocket aces when I picked up pocket kings, and I lost $600. So I went on to book about a $1,300 loss last night. So gotta bounce back today here on Vlog 50. Back at Peppermill away from the brutal California rake, I'm under the gun with ace queen of clubs. I make it 20, and it folds around to the small blind, a nice lady who makes the call. So with 40 in the pot, it comes jack 7-4 with 2 clubs. I have 2 overcards and the nut flush draw. She checks, and I bet 1 green chip. And she thinks about it for a minute and makes the call. So with $90 in the pot, the turn comes an offsuit 10. She then leads out for 50. I don't think she's folding hands like ace jack, king jack, queen jack, or obviously jack 10 if I raise here. So with those being her most likely holdings, I decide to not raise and just put in the call. So with $190 in the pot, the river comes the 8 of clubs, giving me the nut flush. She thinks about it for a second, but does end up checking as you would expect. I figure about a half pot size bet is ideal for getting paid off by a hand like king jack, so I bet 100 and she calls pretty quickly, so we take down a $390 pot. Next hand, we get an under-the-gun limp from a loose player, and I look down at ace of spades, king of spades in the cutoff. I make it 25, and the others fold with the limpers making the call. The flop comes jack, jack, 7 with 1 spade. He checks, and I check it back, planning on calling most of his turn bets. The turn comes the 4 of spades, giving me the nut flush draw. He bets 25, and I raise it to 125. He thinks about it for a minute and lays it down. I really feel like getting my opponents to fold when I have ace-king is not a bad idea. Next hand, under the gun 1 opens to 25, and the cutoff makes the call. I'm on the button with pocket aces. I raise it to 90. Original raiser calls, and the cutoff folds. So with $205 in the pot, the flop comes to 3 of hearts, 4 of spades, 5 of hearts. Under the gun plus 1 checks, and I make a $100 bet. He doesn't think too long with it and calls. So with 405 in the pot, the turn comes an offsuit king. He checks again, and I bet 175 here, which, when I think about it, is definitely too small, given how wide this opponent is willing to call me. Indeed, he does call, so with 755 in the pot, the river comes another 5, and now he checks. I didn't want to just check it back, but what exactly am I targeting now? If he missed his draw, he's obviously not going to call me anyway, and if he had a hand like 5-6, which is very possible knowing him, now I'm beat. So I decide to down bet. The main reason for this is I want to give him the chance to bluff raise. I bet $75, and he doesn't raise, but he calls very quickly with a hand that I could have definitely gotten more value out of. He shows king, queen of hearts, so we take down a $905 pot, which given his hand definitely should have been bigger. Next hand, I open ace 6 of clubs under the gun plus 2, which I only did because I had a very good image on the day. I make it 15 and get 4 callers. So with 75 in the pot, the flop comes out jack of clubs, 4 of clubs, 9 of diamonds. I have the nut flush draw yet again. It gets checked to me, and I bet the pot. The small blind calls, and the others fold. So with $225 in the pot, the turn is the 3 of clubs, giving me the nut flush. He checks, and I bet $100, still kind of targeting a jack here, and he calls me. With 425 in, the river is the 8 of diamonds. So I have the absolute nuts here. He checks, and still targeting a jack primarily, I bet 225. He thinks about it for a minute, and obviously was thinking of whether he should raise or just call. He decides to just call and shows king 7 of clubs for the second nuts. We take down an $875 pot that, kind of like the last one, except much more so obviously, definitely should have been bigger. But we cooler him, and we will not complain. Alright, just got done anchoring the 5 o'clock show here on a Sunday evening, and there's one more thing I just have to do. I saw a couple of great tweets recently, and I do think Twitter is kind of dying, but a couple good ones that I want to mention here that are poker related. I'm sure some of you have already seen them, but just really good. Let's see here. The first one was by Alfie Norick. I'm not even sure who that is, but he says, I don't want to sell action because if I don't cash, I'll feel bad. And if I do, I'll feel worse. And that really does exemplify the thought process that goes into selling action. It's like, well, it only bails me out for all the times I don't cash. And then the times I do cash, I wish I hadn't sold anything. That's part of the reason I've never done it, I guess. And then the other tweet that I'm sure some of you have seen is just so good, it's ridiculous, by Chris Kruk. He says, pre-2019, someone goes all in on the first level of the main event, do you call with aces or kings? Post-2019, guy shoves on you, shows you queen 3 off and his dick, and throws his shoe at you in the tank, and you have pocket fives closing the action. What would you do? Apparently this did happen, and the guy, as he should have, called him with the pocket fives, and then unfortunately for him got beat by the queen 3. And I've heard that that guy got arrested afterwards, which is not a shock. But apparently that did actually go down that way. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for us here. As always, thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed already, please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and like this video as well if you get the chance. We'll see you back here next time.